SEC, can we have a Bitcoin ETF?
No.
How about now?
No.
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 Now? Hey folks, it is I, we, and Bitcoin ETF will most likely be approved next week. That opens the door for $6.7 trillion. So what the F is ETF? Okay, the traditional exchange-traded fund is a basket of securities that trade on an exchange just like a stock does. You know, you take a little Tesla, a little Apple, a little of this, a little of that, and all that together can be traded as an ordinary stock on an exchange. This has some advantages. For example, you bought Facebook shares, and then it happens that Facebook disappears from the face of the earth for hours, and the share price falls. Suddenly, your life becomes hell. Not only do you have to talk to your family on the phone, or worse, face to face, but you have lost money. To avoid this kind of risk, you need to buy an ETF that has other companies in the basket in addition to Facebook, whose price may increase and thus neutralize that loss. The downside of an ETF is that it does not solve the problem with the family. Bitcoin ETFs work exactly the same as other ETFs, but Bitcoin is the underlying asset. So, to summarize, a fund provider owns a lot of different stocks, bonds, commodities, or currencies, the underlying assets. Then it designs a fund to track their performance and then sells shares in that fund to investors. Shareholders own a portion of that ETF, but they don't own the underlying assets in the fund. Shareholders can trade ETFs in the same way as they trade stocks. So far, it has not been possible to buy a Bitcoin ETF in the United States, and that will most likely change next week. Well, why, despite such good news for the entire cryptocurrency market, you can hear people announcing Bitcoin rug pull? Because it already happened in 2017. It's a long story, which I will tell. Sometime in October 2017, stories began about how Bitcoin would finally be exposed to institutional money. That was a huge thing at the time, since before that, Bitcoin, like all other cryptocurrencies, was popular only with retail investors. Inserting Bitcoin into the traditional financial system not only meant that a lot of money would come in, but it also meant that the United States government had no intention of banning it. China had already done that in September of that year. The Bitcoin price has already risen more than 500% from January of that year to October, and that news pushed the price even higher. By December 18th, Bitcoin had reached almost $20,000. On that day, the CME Group launched Bitcoin futures, and institutional investors shorted Bitcoin to exhaustion. The price recovered a little, but the short sellers did not give up until the price fell below $4,000. That is why you can hear people warning that institutions will do it again, because ETFs offer the possibility of short selling. Now, let me tell you what I think about this. I went through all the bull and bear markets in cryptocurrencies, and while after each price increase there was indeed a big drop, each cycle was different. In the bull market in 2011, there were a few of us, fanatics. Even Satoshi Nakamoto was no longer with us. Given that Bitcoin was linked to the dark web and WikiLeaks, we thought it was very possible that everyone would ban cryptocurrencies. China has already done that at that time for the second or third time. The uncertainty was great, and that was reflected in the price. Since Bitcoin was not dead, we entered 2013 a little more relaxed. Coinbase already existed, many merchants had already accepted Bitcoin as a means of payment, FinCEN established regulatory guidelines for decentralized virtual currencies. But there were still problems. Bitcoin was linked to crime, exchanges were hacked, China banned it, again, not kidding, and institutional experts have called Bitcoin a collective delusion. Then, in 2017, people from all over the world started entering Bitcoin. A huge number of people showed up. The number was so large that the exchanges could not provide fast and uninterrupted account opening. Seriously, people waited for weeks for their accounts to be verified. Then, the problems with the institution started. See, decentralized currency was in the hands of the people. The people got rich and the banks did not earn any money from that. And the most important thing that caused the mentioned rug pull was that the institutions did not have a single Bitcoin. That is why there was an organized short sale. They pushed the price of Bitcoin so low that they would force even the most persistent to sell. Then the institutions started buying thousands and thousands of Bitcoins. What's stopping them from doing the same thing again now? I'm glad you asked me that. My opinion is that now they are preventing themselves from doing so. Unlike in 2017, when no institution was in Bitcoin and when they had a common interest in lowering the price so low that they could take all our Bitcoins, today things are not the same. Since each institution is a separate entity, their financial strategies are different. For example, some institutions have an interest in the price of Bitcoin rising because they want to protect their fiat currencies from inflation. On the other hand, some institutions have sold Bitcoin and now they would like to buy again. Therefore, it's in their interest for the price to fall. Some institutions are actively trading in derivatives, so in the short term, sometimes they want the price to rise and sometimes to fall. That's why it is difficult for me to imagine that institutions will start destroying Bitcoin together, as they did in 2017, 2018, and so on. I think that there will be a drop because at some point the price will have to be adjusted. But I think that there will not be such a drop as it was after 2017. This cycle is different from all the previous ones because never before have we had so many retail investors in cryptocurrencies. Never before have we had so many institutions. Never before have we had countries that have accepted cryptocurrencies as legal tender. And finally, since the beginning of Bitcoin, we have not had global disease and global inflation.